My friends, I'm reckoning this year seat at the table. A few years ago, I started about 5 or 6 years ago. I stopped running uh, play-by-post on D&D Beyond when WotC bought him out. There was this big talk about how they were going to go to pay to use the system, pay for everything. And as you well know, if you follow my channel, I'm not a rich person. I really am not. I can't afford one, just constant pay as you go stuff. Uh, so I dropped out, and I started recently. Back in the spring, I started running. I went back to D&D Beyond because so far I have yet to find a platform that works as well as this does for play by post. I had tried. I spent years looking at various platforms, and either they had nobody that hardly ever came in. You couldn't get anybody to play it unless you found outside people to bring them in, or the platforms just didn't support the idea of a play-by-post system. And so, anyway, when I came back, I've had a number of people want to play Warforged, and I had never heard of the term, to be honest with you. I don't remember. I may have heard it, but I don't remember hearing it. But I did hear the word Eberron. I remember vaguely the original box. It came in a box set, just like Spelljammer and Dark Sun and things like that did. And I saw it on the shelves, but it didn't grab me. It's like Dark Sun. It didn't grab me. I didn't buy the box set when it came out and never got into it. So Eberron, I knew almost next to nothing about it. And so when the first player wanted last spring wanted to run a Warforged, I thought, geez, I gotta know more. So, to be a decent GM, you need to know is ideally have at least a basic understanding of what it is your players are running. And so I Googled it, of course, and a lot of information's out there on the internet. A lot of websites out there that support D&D as the hobby. Lots of videos on it, which just got me wondering more and more about the setting and the details. So then I broke down and I went out and I bought the book uh, early summer, and it's a good system or an addition system to D&D. The setting, the sandbox is pretty interesting, no question about it. And there's some other possible player character races and monsters in here that can translate over into other settings fairly good. So I don't know if it's one of those things where if you really got to be want to get into something, or you pick it up and it trips that trigger. It just grabs you and makes you interested. So this was published in 2019. Let's see. So this particular book ain't been out that long. Gives you the history. Welcome to Eberron. So this one is titled "Rising from the Last War." I don't remember this being the part of the original box title. I could be wrong. But we go into character creation, races, got changelings, dragonborn, dwarves, elves, gnomes, goblinoids, half elves, halfling humans, Kalashtar, half orcs and orcs, shifters, tieflings, and warforged. So a lot of the stuff is just typical D&D or carryover from other D&D sandboxes. And then there's a few that are kind of unique or have been applied uniquely. Like the changelings are not new. That's a monster that came in second edition monster manual. No, I'm not 100% sure which one it was, but it was worth my money. I enjoyed reading it through it, and I fully intend to go back and go into some more detail on certain elements of it. The actual setting itself, the sandbox setting itself, probably won't run that. I have no reason to do it. Although go back 40 years, 30 years, uh, there was a friend of mine who was a big fan of things like Quantum Leap. And the idea was that your characters would leap from setting to setting to setting, and you would encounter all kinds of different worlds and sandboxes. And this would have fit right into that particular campaign that he was running, I believe. We get into a conversation on the dragon marks, group patrons, which is another great section as an overall handling of the of. I'm getting ahead of myself, so let's just dig into the book a little bit. So we get the history of Eberron, which I'm not, I don't really care that much about. It's okay. Specifics to help bring the sandbox, the liar, the life, the Neuer intrigue. The Eberron draws inspiration from noir and hard-boiled fiction. It's a world where stories don't always end well and where there isn't a perfect solution to every problem. Its development characters or stories in Eberron consider the following concepts. Everyone has regrets, personal motives, shades of gray, something to lose. A magical world. So in this aspect, it really kind of got I got a grip on it. It really kind of intrigued me because I've always been a fan of the wheels within inside of wheels. The if you're one of the rare people who've played in one of my campaigns, one of my play-by-posts, that might leap right out. That I really love deep character development on an individual level and as a group participant. And the fact that you can have many, many different little gears and cogs and wheels in the overall thing that are all interconnected or may not seem to be interconnected is a beautiful thing. And the truth that the good guys are always the good guys isn't always the truth. You know, it's just like them lawful good paladins who thunder across the fields and trumpet and and defenders of the weak and defenders of this and that. In reality, they are as evil as they are good because a lot of what they think, an individual believes in something so much that this must be the way, this is the only way to live, would be willing to trample on anybody else to force them directly or indirectly into conforming to their ideals. That, my friend, is truly an evil, wicked thing to do to somebody. And that's you don't have to like that. That's my opinion, and so on. So the idea that there are no real heroes, just people trying to survive and do well for themselves and for their friends, that's ideally the most average player group you will find. All right. So it's like shades of gray. Just because somebody says something is evil doesn't necessarily mean it has to be that way. Or they see it as evil because somehow it's intruding on their wishes, desires, and personalities. I mean, and preferences. So I mean, it's just we get the adult, mature mindset for role play. It really adds flavor, and it also helps to explain why even the most best intentions can go south, and even the most lawful beings out there can be unlawful, can do unlawful things in the attempt to make the everything conform to what they think that should be lawful. And another thing that came out with Eberron was that there was this that's called dragon punk. I mean, I've heard the term dragon punk, so in a way, this kind of fits. It's a magically based steampunk-esque kind of setting. So you have more mechanics, machinery. You have magic-powered machines, things like this, i.e., the Warforged. Some of you know the cleverness that I see in evidence, it really struck a chord with me. So the last two campaigns on D&D Beyond that I've got going, the two I got going right now, have that kind of setting, right? It's like the current one, the high seas. The player characters have boarded the Sea Mistress and have left port after a run-in with the Barnacle brothers, a pair of ogres who thought they were going to take over the ship. And the group had yet to really have an opportunity to meet and greet each other, let alone the NPC captain of the ship. And so that's kind of what the couple days sailing they're doing now. And so their individuals are exploring aspects of the ship, and they're discovering that the ship itself is quite advanced for a sailing vessel. It's elvish manufacture with a lot of magic embedded in it. So I've been judiciously using AI, some free AI generators to create some images to make it look even better. Uh, so far, everybody's been receptive to it. I know that there's limitations on what I can do and can't do with the AI image generators, but some of the scenery, at least, I can add a picture to, and so Like one character wanted to see what the gun deck looked like, so that she went to explore the guns and discovered that the guns are heavily magicked. And she, being an arcanist, she did some arcane. She chose to do an arcane study a little bit on the guns, and discovered that there are glyphs and magic runes that have been embedded into the weapons themselves and into the deck around them. And it's implied that there are magic hands and there are prestidigitation, I can never pronounce that word, spells that were ingrained into these things so that the cannons will self clean and self load and will fire on command in individual sequence or in mass, depending on what you tell them to do. This eliminated the need for the ship to have 50 crew instead of 7 or 6, plus the NPC captain at the moment. And along those lines, right? So I looked at things simplistic side. So I had a different player character decided to, for whatever reason, they decided they wanted to go check out the bilge. Who checks out the bilge on a ship? Well, this individual, one of the first things they decided to do was go down to the lowest level of the vessel, and this person's a Goliath to boot. So they find themselves basically on their knees in the bilge, but this is an Elvish bilge, and it's quite pretty. It's quite nice. The AI generated picture turned out to be very nice, and then I added a little bit of a flavor to it. So interspaced on each hull is this brass cap, and so then the player opens the brass cap, and discovers a optical porthole about the size of their eyeball. So they're able to peer out the ship hull and look at the outside of the ship. And magic in the optic allows it to slightly turn, and so they can sweep it along the side of the ship to look for damage and stuff. They also noticed, I had them notice a group of pilot fish that were following up close to the ship's hull. And since they're still in the bay making their way out of the port, the seabed's only about 30 feet below the ship's keel, and you can and it has watery light from the midday sun above, so you can see modestly distant. And so this individual was just amazed by the the uniqueness of this element. I have no clue how this will play in future encounters with the ship and the crew, but that's the sort of thing the little details I added, and the player wasn't just enraptured by it. And then they come back and said that so and so spends some 4 hours down here studying and admiring the under sea life and the layout of what they can see of the bay around them beneath, and thinking of the possibilities. Hmm. See what I'm talking about? Dragon Punk. So we got talks about the last war, draconic prophecies, character creation per chapter. We're not going to go into that, but lots of good stuff. Shifters, dragon marks, a whole new set of magic that are interesting. And dragon marks are bound to certain bloodlines, and by choosing a mark, you establish your character's blood connection with the families of the dragon marked houses. It's up to you to define your relationship to the house. Were you brought up in the house, or are you independent from it, etc.? Lots of interesting opportunities. The mark of passage, the mark of scrying, the mark of warding, the mark of storm. Then we have a section on artificers, which was another class. I had a player in recently in player D&D Beyond want to play an artificer. And this player, unfortunately, some of the downsides of a play-by-post is some players will start out and they don't really have a clue what we're talking about when I talk about play-by-post. And they either are unwilling to take the time to put their thoughts and ideas and actions in print where everybody can see it, or they just aren't interested in it. So they start doing less and less, and eventually they just drop out, or I have an incident take place that their character either wandered off or whatever. So this player wanted to make an artificer, and I saw so many opportunities and possibilities for that character type in the group, and I was looking forward to it. Even had the person even had his own little shop in the city, and that would make an opportunity for a base of operations or a place to get things made. Need the specialty stuff for the characters and things like this, but the player just couldn't get on board. can post after post, the other players are contributing, and this one would hardly you'd barely even know that that player was even present. Eventually, I just wrote that person out. Basically, wrote the person out, and that was that. It was sad because there were so many possibilities there that could have been, just wasn't. Group patrons. So another thing about camp overall, as groups go, ventures get together for numerous different reasons, and sometimes no reasons at all. And then a party forms, and then they go forward. It's just a bunch of friends or a bunch of associates get together, create. I want to play this. I want to play that, and you figure out how to make them mesh. Sometimes it's nice to have sponsors, i.e., a patron. So potentially a novice group of players are put together or pulled together are hired by somebody, or one of the players has a patron who can add additional, give them assistance when they need it and they don't have the resources for it, or provide resources or information or connections, things like that. Those are always great avenues for additional play or for building up the group and the individual player in the group to give them a richer experience, a richer connection. So you know, I was happy to see this sort of thing come up, and this can be easily translated over into any campaign setting, right? And it talks about crime syndicates, guilds, wealthy people, the nobility, all kinds of information on possibilities that you can utilize to as patrons and to find things to help your player characters achieve what they want. Now, here's like the King's Dark Lanterns. This is intelligence division of the King's Citadel. So this is your governmental Secret Service kind of stuff, who would more than happy to have a couple special groups of people that are not connected to the establishment that they can utilize for special missions and special, tasks and errands and things like that. And then by doing so, give the players yet another layer of play, in my mind. It's the same thing with the thieves guilds. Traditionally, those kind of things were some of the guilds and the thieves guilds in general, were some of the earliest ideas of patrons that I can remember in the game system, going way back, right? So the immortal being, of course, you don't always have to sell your soul to the devil to become, the chosen, or at least a person of interest to a angelic being, something that's an immortal creature, or some godlike whatever. Keeping in mind, though, as a GM, you got to be very judicious in how you apply that. You don't want to overdo it. You don't want the players to become dependent. Well, we can just do whatever we want, kind of stuff, and we'll get somebody to bail us out. The military forces. This is something that, if you've ever played games like BattleTech and you played a mercenary, you fully understand the concept behind that. So the fact that you can apply this to D&D as well is an awesome addition. The newspaper. This one here kind of took me by surprise a little bit, but also gave me a chuckle, because in Shadowrun, being a reporter or having connections to the news service is a potential patron and or problem. So it's just the idea that that they can do this in D&D is not new to me. I had a player in a play-by-post 6 years ago who was a bard, and she decided she was going, her initial goal when she came to the city, before she meets the other players, was to rise up inside the bureaucracy of the city itself. And so she got a job as a herald. What good job for a bard. Once a day, or twice a day, once early in the morning, once at midday, she was assigned a specific market square where she would go, and she would read off decrees and common stuff that the city wanted the public to know. And in doing so, this gave her contacts within the bureaucracy. And then one of the first player characters that she encountered was this half-orc bounty hunter. And the bounty hunter was looking to find somebody to, if he could find a way to get a drop on new bounties coming out, he would have an advantage. And she found out that she could go into the bureaucracy office that handled that sort of stuff, and she made a connection in there that allowed her to get a view of upcoming bounties. Because one of her jobs would be to post these bounties up in specific places in the area that she was assigned to, and so she would connect with the half orc before posting this to give him a heads up on, so he could, pick and choose the choice subject. And from there, the group grew, and their involvement in the city situation grew as well. So I'm just using that as how that played out in one campaign that I had. So, all right, schools, universities, church organizations. Chapter 2, I've got the Gazetter, the city and the lands itself, more about the place, all good stuff. Politics of the sandbox, locations, what to do, things like that. Pre-baked campaigns in here, talking about the so-called last war and how it plays now it's a Cold War, so on and so forth. The Lords of Blades, the Lords of Dust. All right, the campaign settings, all over this book. A lot of interesting stuff, a lot of good stuff, a lot of useful stuff in it. And I'm intrigued by a number of different things, and I like going to apply some of them. It's just like so when we get to sections like treasures, this is just additional stuff that you can somehow work in bestiaries, foes, friends. These are things you can work into any setting you have that's similar. So if you're running any kind of D&D setting, any one of these things could be tapped and moved in and utilized. So is it worth your money? I think it is. If you really want to find, unique things to add or specialty things to add to your existing campaign, or if you're really interested in the sandboxes all, this is a very rich world. One of the things I want to note about Eberron that makes it very unique compared to pretty much any other supplement you will find for Dungeons & Dragons specifically, the fellow who wrote this pretty much wrote the entire product. That means the whole development has all been thought up by an individual and linked together. When you got a team of people, each doing a different section, different things within the section, those nuances change. You can see the differences. It becomes less cohesive. And this is definitely a cohesive sandbox. Very good, very worth having. If you don't have it, fine. If you're into this, I'd love to hear more what your experiences are in playing in this setting and what you liked about it, because I really am interested in using a lot of material for this for other settings and other campaigns now, in the ones I'm running now and then down the road. Anyway, my name's Rick. You're not. Gray and White Mama's sitting up there in the corner behaving herself today. Things are going okay. Friday, personal note, Friday I had to take Frankie. She's the one with the googly the bad eye that's on the YouTube main page from the channel. She's been sick. This summer, the fleas have been brutal, and they went after her with a vengeance. She's lost weight. She grooming herself to the point where she's, stripping fur off of her. They're first starting to grow back on her feet and stuff. She got a big infection in her ear, in her ears and in her eyes, and she was looking very, very rough. So I broke down. I should have took her sooner, but vets are expensive. And I got burned real bad by a place called Banfield some years ago, and it took me. They got me for $1,200 and didn't do jack. They didn't do jack for the money, and it took me a year to pay that bill off. So I was leery. And another vet, when I called them, they wanted $300 cash just to see her. And I just can't do this. Well, then the local ARL is partnered up with two small budget vets here in town, and I seen that on the news last 2 weeks ago. So I called, and they had the one on the south side. They have walk-ins are welcome, but it's first come, first serve. And so we went down there and got in a line. We were the fifth in the door. We got her. They saw her. They gave us some stuff, some antibiotics, some bacterial stuff to help fight the infection. It's a pill we got to grind up, put in her treat twice a day. They gave her a steroid shot, a rabies shot. They gave her, and then they gave her some eye drops to put in her eyes. She don't like that. And then we got some stuff to squirt in her ear. She don't like that, but we're getting it in there. And then they recommended, of course, the flea bath, and Frankie does not like a bath, and she's only had a few of them, and she fights viciously. And we don't want her. We get stressed. She gets stressed. We don't want her to get hurt. We don't want to hurt her, but it has to happen. So, and we give her a bath yesterday. It was traumatic for her, but the more baths we give her, the better she'll be, I think. We just got to keep at it. I told the wife she absolutely has to vacuum the house twice a week now. Because you want to get as many of the fleas and their eggs and stuff as you can. We've got stuff we spray on everything at night, and spray on stuff we can rub in the cat's furs. The cat collars, flea collars, they're a joke. They don't work very well. Gray and White Mama back here, she's the second worst that's with the fleas. We didn't understand that fleas can come through the screens of the windows. So the fleas have been, because we didn't have very many hard freezes last winter. The fleas have been really bad this year, and that's what the vet said. And she says they come right in through the screens of your windows. If you have your open windows, and we live with all this wooded areas next to us, and a lot of grass and weeds and things like that, they're just thick out there. They come in on our legs. They come in through the screens. So, we just have to be very, very aggressive with treating them. The cats run from us whenever we start pulling stuff out of the cabinets. A lot of that over-the-counter stuff that they sell, it don't work that well. And for it to work at all, you got to keep applying it a lot. And we're trying. We're trying. Anyway, once again,